two things can be true. Florida State, very, very bad football team. But Notre Dame, good football team. I think that's what we saw here tonight in South Bend in a 52-3 drubbing that was every bit as bad as that final score suggests in terms of the quality of this football game. And that's why the score was that bad, Jack. Florida State, bad. Notre Dame, good. Notre Dame, 8-1. 3 games left now to get into the college football playoff. They look like a college football playoff team, even against a team that it's not a measuring stick by any means, because you go out there and anybody should beat that Florida State team. I even made the joke in the press box. I think they play Charleston Southern next week. Maybe Charleston Southern can beat that football team. I'm not sure it's that bad, but it's bad, Jack. And we saw a Notre Dame team a little sluggish in the first quarter, but kick it into gear and really take over the game and win by convincing margin.
No, I think Notre Dame can say, Florida State's got talent all at once. That's a terrible football team. It's just an albatross of a I don't even know what you tell, if you're Mike Norvell, what you tell those guys after the game. It's bad down in Tallahassee. But I think a couple encouraging signs for Notre Dame. Number one, the defensive line, fantastic. 8 sacks. Riley Mills had 3 on his own. Donnie Heinisch had 2. The other encouraging sign is the offense. They scored 21 points in the first half, but sloppy drop passes, a couple missed throws, some negative runs resulting from missed blocks. The execution on offense really stepped up its game in the second half, and I think that's an encouraging sign for this football team.
Yeah, I mean, we have to start with the defense. I think a lot of times we start with the offense just because everyone wants to talk about Riley Leonard and is it going in the right direction? Yes, it is, even with some of that sloppy stuff that we mentioned. We'll get there, but Jack, Riley Mills, that's the Riley that we need to talk about right now. He was on a different level tonight, and you had a very good question to Riley Mills in the post-game press conference, because we need to hit on the fact that Howard Cross left this game pretty early on, rolled his ankle pretty good. Looked like he was mad because he kind of knew in the moment. I know exactly what this is. Marcus Freeman confirmed it afterwards to us. It is an ankle sprain. We didn't see him again. We saw a lot of tape on his ankle. But immediately upon him leaving the game, Riley Mills has 2 of his 3 sacks. Of course, gets another one later on. Just dominance. I think he kind of embodied how dominant Notre Dame was up front. And by the way, that allowed a very good Irish secondary to do what they do as well. Yeah. I think there's complementary football between an offense and a defense. There's also complementary football between a unit itself. We saw that tonight with the defensive line and then everyone behind them. Well,
we should also address Howard Cross. It's something Notre Dame cannot afford him to miss time into if it wins his next 3 games of the college football playoff. Freeman said he was out for now, was I think the phrase he used. If the game was close, he might have been able to go back in. He wasn't sure, but by the time they were going to have that conversation, the game was already over, so obviously they're going to hold him out then. Doesn't seem like it's too serious. Maybe if he misses time, though, Riley Mills needs to play like he did today, because that was fantastic from number 99. He was dominant. They weren't cheap sacks either. He was beating his man. He was beating 2 men at some points. He wrecked that game. And Riley Mills got off to, I think, a slow start this season. Yeah, I think a lot of those guys up front, like him, Jack Kaiser, Howard Cross, a little bit slow starts, but they have been really upping their game recently. Cross has been fantastic recently. Mills has been unblockable. Mills has been the best player on this defense the past few weeks.
I don't remember the exact phrasing, but Riley Leonard in his post-game press conference said, just look at the guy. He's a freak. Absolutely. We got to talk to both of them, and they were both very insightful. Let's talk about some specifics in the game here. Notre Dame gets the ball first, scores very quickly. I think it only took 5 plays. Riley Leonard has 13 rushing touchdowns now this year. I was almost compelled to use one of my 2 questions to him today, but you already asked about this specific score. I think the very first touchdown of this game might have been one of his best of the year. Absolutely makes a defensive back look foolish with the change of direction in space, and then gets the edge and literally dives into the end zone. Riley Leonard is one of the best runners of the football as a quarterback in college football, and I think Notre Dame fans need to appreciate that.
No, not reckless abandon. I don't think, because it's not that. He's a sturdy guy. It's not reckless. The competitiveness and the fighting for every extra yard. He was, that meme of the kid on The Simpsons who's jumping headfirst through a window. That was Riley Leonard going. That was Riley Leonard going over the pylon. And when we say over, we mean over. He just flew over that thing. He I think had 11 carries, including a sack that he admitted after the game he shouldn't have taken. 11 carries, 70 yards. That's what you need out of Riley Leonard. throwing the ball for Leonard, he was not perfect. His 52% completion percentage, missed a couple scattered throughout the game, but 7.9 something yards per attempt, which is a very solid outing for Riley Leonard. He was hitting those slot fades to Jaden Harrison, Jaden Greathouse. Greathouse had probably his best game of the season, 5 for 66. There was some bad in the passing game, a couple drops, but there was a lot of good too.
You got to like that Jaden Greathouse has this game. One game after Jordan Faison has that game. If you get all of this going together, I think Notre Dame can finally get over the hump and be the passing team that it wants to be. That's conversation for another day. The rushing game in this, they get over 200 yards. I mentioned that to Jadarian Price in the postgame. That's in large part because J.D. Price, 65 of those yards came on what I think was a mood settling touchdown for Notre Dame. They're only up 7-3 at the time. It feels like they need to get the next score because if Florida State does, all of a sudden you're thinking, oh, we're in one of these. Nope, J.D. Price goes down this kind of the same direction that he scored against USC on the kickoff return, going toward the north end zone. He loves the north end zone under the lights here at Notre Dame Stadium.
That corner of the north end zone.
That's the same corner, yeah. Electrifying run. Notre Dame needed it. And then Notre Dame also needed, at the very end of the half, they're put in a 2-minute situation, and they score there. So I'm talking about the 7-3 ball game, Jack. All of a sudden, it's 21-3, and at halftime, we all felt like, okay, yep, this one's over. Just how bad is it going to be? Turned out it got even worse. But those two touchdowns for me were big in the first half.
Oh, absolutely. Another thing I want to point out is Marcus Freeman going for it. I think it was 4th and 10. They sent the field goal team on. Florida State called timeout to freeze the kicker. Freeman thought about it like a hobbled Mitch Jeter who kicked in the game, went 1 for 2 on field goals, but wasn't 100%. I think we all realize that. Zach Yoakum has been a little inconsistent since he came in for Jeter. Freeman realized, like, you know what? They're at like the 35 to 40, something like that. Mm-hmm. They're probably not making a field goal from that point. And if they don't convert the 4th down, Florida State is probably not coming back and scoring on the other end. Absolutely correct decision to go for it.
I like that.
They caught Florida State substituting illegally, hit the dig to Jordan Faison. A couple plays later, beautiful throw from Leonard on another one of those slot fades to Mitchell Evans in the back left corner of that north end zone. At that point, the game is over. But I think a really important point from this game is even when the game was over, and like they could have scored 0 points in the second half and won this game because of how the defense was playing. But the offense kept its foot on the gas, kept executing well, and I think that really matters both for college football playoff standings, the style points, and the confidence going forward.
Did not stop at those 21 points, though, because Jordan Clark gets his first career interception with Notre Dame,
Correct.
Right? And then Notre Dame, again, in a situation, situational offense is so big.
Yeah.
You got to. I asked Riley Leonard about this after the game, and he totally agreed. You got to score when it feels like you got to score. Jordan Clark sets you up on the other side of the 50, go score a touchdown. That's what Notre Dame did. At that point, 28-3, this thing was on ice. From there, I mean, Jeremiah Love continues his touchdown streak. I think he's one of a handful of players. It's one of my favorite Sunday things to do is who still has scored in every single game that they've played in this year. Jeremiah Love, not his best game or biggest game, I would say. He didn't touch the ball a whole lot. I think it was, 7 carries?
9 carries for 19 net yards, and then 1 reception for 13 yards. It was a pretty good throw and catch. Then he also had the drop. So not his best game, but still managed to get in the end zone.
And didn't need to be his best game. That's the thing. There's guys up and down the list that Jack's looking at right now where you say, okay, that's how this came to be 52-3. So, and outside of Steve Angeli, he had a nice a pass to Deion Colsey, which I guess you were noticing. Deion Colsey. He was a part of the game plan. Yeah. He goes in and makes a really good block on, was it Leonard's touchdown?
Leonard's second rushing touchdown. Deion Colsey, a part of the game plan for the first time this season, kind of goes in as a slot receiver, but functionally a blocking tight end. Makes a couple nice blocks on short yardage carries for Riley Leonard. And you know what? That's someone who stayed engaged throughout the season, even though they haven't really been part of the plans, and they contributed to this. Deion Colsey contributed to this win.
That basically is the way that I would wrap this up, is that everything went well for Notre Dame, and they got a lot of contributions from a lot of different parts. So it's set up really nicely for this Irish team. I guess that's how we'll finish this in closing. You play a Virginia team that's not as bad as Florida State, but Notre Dame is better than the Virginia Cavaliers. They should win that one. You should be 9-1 headed to New York City again to play another service academy again, and you'll be favored in that one, and you'll be favored to beat USC as well. I know it's one game at a time, but Jack, each week this is coming into clearer focus that what Notre Dame has set out to do ever since the debacle that was NIU, they're doing it, and they're doing it in impressive fashion.
Yeah, and there's one more point I want to make about this game: the Clark interception. Yep. What I think you're going to write about after this game is the D line and back seven working in concert with each other. It was Jalen Sneed gets through two guys. Pressures. I forget if I think it was Glenn. It doesn't really matter.
There's two quarterbacks that played for Florida State, and they were equally as bad, I would say.
Yeah, I think it was Glenn who had the interception. He was like 1 for 10 with a pick at that point. But Sneed gets the pressure, forces the hurried throw. Clark is right there to get the interception. That is what this defense is all about. Defensive back sticking into these receivers like glue, and the defensive line forcing the quarterbacks into mistakes.
And that's what you take into the Virginia game. If you can get that again, you'll win that game. If you can take it on the road in the last two, you should win those games too. So again, we're not getting ahead of ourselves here, but we are paid to kind of prognosticate a little bit. And that's just what we're seeing from this Notre Dame team right now. So we will continue to tell you what we see from this Notre Dame team at this Blue and Gold YouTube channel. Like this video, subscribe, stick with us through these final 3 ball games, because this has become a very fun and interesting Notre Dame season, and we will be here every step of the way to cover it.